Greetings, everybody, and welcome once more to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back in time? The 90s call, and we're going to be learning about another CCG today. Of course, I am your host, your guide, your emperor here at the Empire. This now, Van Dracovin, here to lead you in the past. Open up the time portal. We're heading back to 95 to learn about Doomtrooper CCG, based on an RPG, which in ways is still going today. So we'll have to dive into it, learn all about it, and make sure you get all the information you might need. And you can still possibly play this game today. Kind of. We'll discuss it. But before we go, I will need one thing from all of you out there. Please make sure if you aren't subscribed to this channel, you are. And if you have an opportunity, let me know, have you played today's game, Doomtrooper, at all? Whether it's digital form, it's card form, or something else. Let me know. All right, the time portal awaits. Grab my hand, stay close. Don't want to lose you in the time stream, and I'm not getting you back. And let's get going. We're back in time. It's time to learn about Doomtrooper, or sometimes called Mutant Chronicles Doomtrooper. Why is this? Let's begin with the very basics. And there's the back of one of the cards that you would get. And it's because Doomtroopers is set in the Mutant Chronicles universe. The entire concept of this is there's a 10th planet that appears in our solar system where another dimension was broken. There's this Dark Legion coming to the solar system, and it's being fought against by these 5 different megacorps: the Bacchus, Capital, Mishima, Imperial, Cybertronic, and also this Brotherhood, which is kind of a church-based group. These 6 are fighting against these Dark Legion. And the object is to use various warriors and build squads of warriors called Doomtroopers, or possibly using cohorts, which are your Dark Legion forces, or on that one, so you can do both a little bit of both sides there for your warriors you're putting into play, and earn points, which take the form of 2 different types of points: Destiny points, which is your currency, and promotion points, which is how you win the game. And when you reach a certain amount of promotion points, you win. It's a very interesting and relatively simple game. And if you've seen some of my other videos in this history, you'll see there's another video that's kind of similar to this. Still a little different, but close to it. The Crow, done by the same people. So, it was officially released in 94, January 95. Why am I giving 2 dates? Well, the fact is that the basic set had a limited version and then an unlimited version, and eventually did have a revised version that came out later of that unlimited version, basically like a reprint. But really, when we focus on the official full release, it's the unlimited rather than the limited version. It's kind of similar to Magic. When we talk about Magic, we talk about unlimited being like the official full really release date when it came out to the public, but there was the limited alpha and beta releases. So this one had a similar beta first edition release. The publishers were Target Games, Heartbreaker Hobbies. The two of the people that did the Crow game I've already talked about on this thing. And that's again, Mutant Chronicles is a Swedish group, a Swedish game. We'll talk about that. And there is a digital version that was funded on Kickstarter, kind of came out. We'll talk about that at the end. All right, we've established everything. We've gotten our picture of the game, of who made it. Let's dive into those people that made it, because not everybody out here has seen, I'm sure, my video on the Crow CCG. But if you want to kind of TLDR on these 2 companies, this is Target Games and Heartbreaker. We can start by talking about Heartbreaker Hobbies, as they are known about. The fact is that Heartbreaker's Hobbies was founded in 1991. It was created by Bob Watts, who was a senior manager at Games Workshop, and eventually he merged with Target Games, especially their kind of a more American branch in Target Games AB. And eventually both combined went bankrupt in 99 and kind of put off their stuff. Bob Watts eventually joined with Magic, Wizards of the Coast for some time. There's a kind of thing on Heartbreaker. And that comes to poor Target, which again, we know went bankrupt in 99, but they were pretty big active from the 1980s. And in the mid-90s, they kind of became known as Target Games. That was kind of when they rebranded from their Swedish name. They were really known for a whole bunch of the different RPGs they had. Draken Åker Demor, Mutant Chronicles, and Cult. We will talk about, again, they did a whole bunch of CCGs during this time period, so we're going to visit them again. if you're going to continue watching the series, but I'm just kind of giving you an idea about them. So, yeah. But they based at least this game, rather than an outside IP, like they did with Crow, on their thing. And these games will have similarities between them. That's an important thing to say when we're looking at these two. It's just, you have to think about the similarities as, it's like people that have a role-playing system and make multiple games. You know, the people that do Call of Cthulhu, they have a certain system. Modifius has a certain system. They build games within it. And they build multiple games into that branch. This is in that for CCG form. So they're very similar games, but they're played completely differently, have some... It's the finite details of the rules. But let's talk, of course, Mutant Chronicles. And this is a relatively new book about Mutant Chronicles. This is an image from the 2015 release. So there is a third edition that came out in 2015, published by Modifius. Yeah, using their 2D20 system. This was the last printing that we have of it, so we don't have a lot of support on it now, but it is owned by basically Paradox Entertainment as of right now. So whether or not they're going to publish more is kind of hard to say. Basically, the company that made a deal with Modifius, though it could have been Paradox, it was basically in 2015 that Modifius started working on this, so it's hard to say if it was the Cabinet Holdings who had the rights before, or Paradox who acquired the rights to start working on this, but we do know at least something came out. The original editions were, of course, published in 93 for the first two, and 97 for the second one. So that's giving you an idea about this entire thing. The CCG's license kind of existed a little bit in the early 2000s, early, you know, but it really didn't go anywhere at that time, too. So we have an idea. And this is basically the same concept of distant future Earth, humanity's on various different worlds. There's the big mega corporations that are a big part of it, the Brotherhood, the Dark Legion. It's a lot of the same concepts are behind Mutant Chronicles that we've already done. So you kind of have an idea of where the RPG goes. Talk a history of the game as we look at a box of the cards here. So we know the main designer was Brian Winter. Looking into Brian Winter, just as a quick note on him, he did work on a lot of games like Cult and other games that were related there too. The game itself had some moniker of success. It lasted and had releases up through 97. It in fact had 6 different expansions that were put out, and it had a plan for an additional expansion and a second edition. Both those never cemented physically, though though online you can find versions of these that exist, that apparently enough information was left over that fans and basically people that had worked on it were able to put these together. So yes, while the final expansion, which we'll talk about, and the second edition never came to be, there are fan versions of them which probably have a essence of what they were, but maybe not everything, with some, like, you know, it's a fan version of things. Sometimes these are brought back, and how much of the original work that wasn't work is there, how much is just fans. That's who you talk to the people that developed it. Other important facts that we can talk about it is the fact that Doomtrooper was released in 16 languages. Originally, its first expansion, Inquisition, was released in 7 more. So basically that limited was released in things like English, Italian, Spanish, Swedish. The Unlimited actually ended up getting it in 9 additional languages, including Hebrew and Japanese. The game was incredibly popular in Poland, where it was published, and all the expansions ended up, except for one, ended up in Poland from 95 to 2000. And the even Spanish language ones saw all the expansions released, except for the final one that was physically released before the failed one. So it was also a game in a lot of languages. I'll tell you that the main packs and starter packs were what you started out with, but we know the expansion was sold in 8 cards packs. I'm unsure how, again, this is me trying to research this, not finding any information exactly. You might see on the cards here when I show a picture, but basically the final set that was released and the one that was going to be after it was going to be sold in 15 card booster packs. So, yeah. And the last one was in 97. So that's kind of the idea of the history of the release there and kind of how it was developed. Good old Brian Winter there. Let's talk about one more thing before we move on to the card sets. So let's talk about the releases. So we can start with, of course, the basic set, which was limited, unlimited, and revised. Of course, they sold in starter decks, 60 card tradable cards that start you in your adventure, but they also sold in booster packs here. I mean, it's if you're not getting a booster pack, you're not where you want to be. I'm just gonna see here quickly if I can read how many cards are on here. I talked about that I was unsure because this is 15. Okay, so the original one had 15, and up until the last expansion, all the booster packs were sold in 8s, which will be for the ones I'm going to talk about next: Inquisition, Warzone, Mortification, Golgotha, Apocalypse. So let's turn to the first expansion, which we have a more exact date. It came out in April 95. While, yes, this original set was kind of 94 for the more limited and January for when it was the unlimited release. I don't have an exact date for the revised unlimited, but we had Inquisition, the 8-card packs here, which was sold then, which was a 170 card expansion. There was some foil stampings, may I also note, in some of these packs. So foil stampings, a thing that, remember, when we talk about foil stampings, we talk about it in, Magic. Doomtrooper may have had it a little bit before Magic. Think about that. We, of course, had Warzone, the next one that came in, introducing some more concepts and rules. Mortificator, still 8-card boosters. Golgotha, Mortificator was 95, Golgotha came out in 96. Apocalypse, which again came out in, of course, 96. And of course, if you can see here, this one was a 15-card booster pack. So now we're switching over a little bit here in the pack numbers, which takes us, of course, to Paradise Lost, the last one, which was also 15-card booster packs. And these were over 100 cards. Again, I wasn't able to find exact card numbers for many of these. You can find somewhat card lists online for a lot of these, but I didn't have numbers. Finally, we can kind of talk about the 2 sets. It was Ragnarok, which was planned for 97 and never released, and also a planned second edition, basically a revised of the basic set that was a, but again, these were completed by fans later on, so you can find fan versions of both Ragnarok and second edition. This is important to know because I'm technically, when I talk about the rules of this game, I'm going to be talking the second edition rules. Those were the very easy rules to find online at this point in time, because those are probably the ones that are used more for the digital version. Anyway, there were promos. Yes, there were promos. Not a huge amount of promos, but our good friend, the Golgotha Warrior Princess here, is one of them. There was, in fact, 9 promos, as I can confirm, that were released. Where they were released, when they were released, and how they were released, I was unable to find that information without very, very, very deep dives. As me doing my week-long kind of step into here to help you get an idea of this game. I did dive that deep for it, though. But, yes. But there were promo cards, too, which is really cool. The card! Look at it. Isn't it sweet? Now, this is just basically an illustration that tells you where everything is on a card. And your majority of Doomtrooper cards are in this format. This is the basic format. There are a couple of exceptions. We'll talk about them. But this is the basic way the cards are formatted. At the top over at R1 is, of course, our card name. 2 is the card type icon. I'll go through all the different card types under the main card types you can use, so you get an idea of what those icons are. 3 is then the affiliation, what group it is. Is it from one of the 5 main megacorps? Is it from Brotherhood? Or is it from one of the more subgroups that were added in? Was it from the Dark Legion? Or again, one of the other groups that was added in the expansions, because many were. The 4 is the post-play icon, which on various arts and special cards kind of defines something special about them, which can have things like pluses, minuses, X's, which kind of represent different things that represent how cards are done. 5 is deck limit. We will talk about deck building, but basically, hey, on the card it tells you how many of these cards you can have in your deck. 6 is, of course, the set icon. Hey, that's a classic one. And 7 is the card text, the very easy one that tells you everything about it. And finally, 8 is combat rankings. That tells you how basically things fight, shoot, what kind of armor it has, and what kind of value it has. The FSAV. All of these are going to be important to talk about, all of them when we discuss the rules, but just know those are the numbers on them. Let's talk the types of cards. And I'll go into little, like, simple things here. I'm not going to go too deep into all of them, but yeah. We've got Warriors with Big Bob Watts here. I just liked his name, that's why I chose him as the Warrior. These are the backbone of your Doomtrooper game. Most actions take place through Warriors. They're placed in your combat areas, they're used to attack other players. Yes, there are other sub-rules to talk about, but this is your basic Warrior card. Then, of course, you have Equipment. These are items that are placed with warriors to enhance their combat abilities, give them special abilities and special skills. They're attached to each one individually. Again, rules on that, we'll dive into them more. Relics are artifacts of power. They're also attached to warriors, but there's specific rules for relics that we'll talk about. They're a little different than equipment. Beasts are special creatures that can be found throughout Earth that may be ridden into battle, kind of like a vehicle. When we go back to equipment, there are weapons, armors, vehicles, and other things. But like it has similar rules to the vehicles, the beasts. Fortifications are structures or buildings. They're placed in your combat area. They affect your warriors' defensive abilities or give them special abilities. Arts are kind of like spells that can be cast by Doomtroopers that allow them to use them. Most that can are affiliated with the Brotherhood, but basically it'll kind of tell you which ones can use arts and have the abilities of these cards. Similarly speaking, is of course the Dark Symmetries, which are used by Dark Legion. I've talked about how Doom Troopers go into your squad, and your Dark Legion cards go into your the name escaped me for a second. Cohort. But yes, these will go to your Dark Legion characters. There's also then key powers. Mishima warriors have some key powers. Mishima being one of the 5 main corporations, they get some key powers, and they've developed strange powers, kind of like the Brotherhood has their ability, the Dark Legion has their. Mishima people, they got key powers. There are mission cards. These are special instructions or general strategic tactics from a warrior's superiors. Missions must be played before the mission's carried out. They always state which warrior may perform the mission and special instructions. Some can even be assigned to players. We'll talk about them, and they can give bonuses to people. War zones, which were introduced in an expansion, which are special battlefields. We'll talk about how they work. Specials. These are basically everything else that doesn't fit into the normal categories. These are just special cards. Combat modifiers, unique events, personal influence. There's a lot of things. And finally, alliances. These are basically the cornerstone of the entire thing. Most warriors have an alliance, but basically you can have an alliance out to give your warriors a bonus. There are some other card types to talk about too, possibly, but I basically kept those out because most of them are either specific to an expansion, or a few of them were introduced in some unofficial expansions which have occurred over the years before the official publishing of this revamp of 2nd edition. Kind of that in-between time when some people did some unofficial things too. The affiliations. These are your 6 main ones. Now, I didn't put the Dark Legion in here. The Dark Legion sign is it was on the one card there, but these are the ones that you really, because they're your Doomtrooper ones. Bauhaus is the little gear, Capital is the eagle, Cybertronic is the C, Imperial is the red circle, Mishima is the M, and of course the Brotherhood is the Iron Cross type thing. So yes, these are just the symbols of affiliations, and each one will have an affiliation. Everyone has one, which is the one you're affiliated with. There are some exceptions to that. warrior cards, which we'll kind of talk about. But yes, these are the origins of the group. And there are more affiliations beyond this, just kind of like there's some extra card types beyond this, but these are the basics you're going to have to know about with most of the core first few expansions and such like that. Let's talk rules. Yes, we've reached the time where we speak of how to play a game. So, let's start with the basics, as we have this little, like, probably Mutant Chronicles image here. Your object is to use your combat zones to defeat your opponent, gain enough promotion points. But you also earn destiny points, which is your currency. You have 3 basic areas in your combat area: your squad, your cohort, your outpost. So, your squad are your Doomtroopers, your corporate warriors. Your cohorts are the Dark Legions that are basically trying to overthrow the solar system. The outpost basically represents the people abandoned on Earth, because all the big companies and corporations are out in the solar system. And you're struggling to earn points to win. A classic easy game would be about 25 promotion points, where a longer, more experienced game would be 40. And I'll talk about the balance between destiny points and promotion points as we go, but keep in mind there is one. Now, this is a game that can have any number of players. 2 players are the minimum, and each person has to have at least a 60-card deck. There is no upper limit. But again, it's the same thing with most deck building. You want to use it. And there are the starter decks that are pre-constructed 60-card decks. There are a couple things when you're using multiple players. The very exact style. You're going to be playing clockwise. And the style could be free-for-all. You attack anybody. A primary target, which is the person to your left, where that's the person you're really attacking. And if you want to attack someone else, you have to spend destiny points. Or teams, if you have an even number of people. Those are the 3 multiplayer ways to do it. You know, like, oh, if I have 3 people, probably just going to do free-for-all. You can attack everybody. But if you have, like, 5 people, you might want to, like, have your primary target to your left. You know, you don't have to do anything else to fight that, to attack that person to the left. Anybody else, you have to spend destiny points to. Meaning if the person to your left wants to attack back to you, they have to spend destiny points. They have to spend a resource. And, of course, you want to keep track of your destiny points and promotion points. This is the basic layout to a degree. This shows some of the things here. Now, the open space here would have space for your 3 groups. Your squad of Doomtroopers, your cohorts of the Dark Legion, your outposts of warriors. And then you have your 4 decks there, and as you can see, DP and PP on the side there. Markers, if you need any kind of markers. But that's your draw, discard, annihilated, and sideboard. Annihilated is equivalent to exile magic. Yeah. So, even if you don't have those cards in the game, you are still considered to have those areas of having a squad, a cohort, and outpost, even with no one in them. So those are the combat areas you always have. And as long as you have someone in one of those, you have warriors in front of you. So yeah. Those are 3 separate groups, though. The green one here is your draw. The yellow is your discard. The red is your annihilated, which is kind of like completely removed from the game. Keep in mind that discard and annihilated are placed face down in that pile. Keep that in mind, too. And, of course, sideboard blue, which if you're doing, like, kind of multiple games, kind of things, that's like a sideboard of Magic. You probably or may not have that, depending on the game you're doing. So, yeah. That's the basic kind of version of it. Let's talk about how to play the game, because that's probably a good way to start this entire thing here, too. I'm showing off some cards. So, you take turns taking turns. The obvious thing. It goes clockwise around the board, of course, and on your turn, there are 3 basic sections to your turn, and the main section gives you 3 actions. There's a draw, action phase, discard phase. Your 3 actions are your special maneuvers. It's all the kind of things you do. There are some basic actions we'll talk about with the game here, but other actions can be added in from cards that give you other options too. And there are things that could give you all extra actions here and there. And basically you just keep going and taking turns and going around the board until someone gets enough promotion points to reach that 25, 40, whatever. Also keep in mind for your deck, has to be at least 60, and you have to adhere to the deck limit on your cards. If a card you have says, I can only have 3 of it, well, you can only have 3 of that card. If it says you can only have 1 of that card, you can only have 1 of that card. So it will inform you of deck limits. So keep all of that in mind when you are kind of getting there, you know. So that is an important number to keep in mind, your deck limit. But other than that, you know, your deck can be pretty much anything. That's it. I like, you probably are going to have a good balance of all the different types of cards. Or some of them you just don't need at all. Like, you're really going to need more, like, you know, warriors and probably, like, some equipment. Definitely some, like, special cards. And after that, it just depends on what you're building. Anyway. So, we begin the game. At the beginning of the game, everybody starts with 5 points in your destiny pool. You start with 5. This is your starting resource. There is a version of a mulligan here called a Cardinal's Gift. If you don't have any warriors in your opening hand of 7, you can claim Cardinal's Gift. You show your hand to the other players, pick up 7 new cards, and then take your original hand and shuffle it back into your deck afterwards. If you do not have a warrior, if you do have a warrior in your open hand, you can still reshuffle and claim a Cardinal's Gift. But the original 7 cards, once revealed, if you have a warrior in them, you don't shuffle them. They become your discard. So they get discarded if you want to reshuffle your opening hand and you have warriors in it. And then we go to the opening player. So as I said, and again, you can only claim the Cardinal's Gift once per player. So the first 3 steps, you draw. You draw up to your current hand limit at the beginning of the turn. So if my hand limit is 7, the basic to start out with, and nothing is enhancing my hand limit, I draw up 7 cards at the beginning of my turn. Granted, I could have something that increases or decreases my hand limit. Like if it says, oh, now I have 6 because something decreased it, well, I can only draw up 6. Well, if something gives me 2 extra, oh, now I can hold up to 9. I can draw up to 9 cards in my hand. I draw up to 9. You have to go to your hand limit. Then you have your 3 actions. I will go over a little bit of detail about all the actions before the end of today, but there are 2 types of actions, and yeah, we'll go into everything about it. There are basically your standard actions and tactical actions. So there are a lot of standard actions, there are a lot of tactical actions, but you get 3 of them. We'll get into all the rules there, and then you discard a single card if you wish. All right, let us go into a little bit of extra on each of these steps here, though, because there is a little bit more to talk about. Let's of course start with drawing, because there, as much as they're like, oh, you dropped 7 cards, there's a few things here. So if you draw the last card from your draw pile, you continue playing normally. If you run out of cards, you just keep playing. The game does not end. Basically, there is a rule if you have no warriors in play and no draw pile. We'll talk about that before the end of today. But other than that, basically you go until all players run out of cards. Then the game immediately ends. If no one has cards in their deck, game ends, person with the most promotion points wins. If there's a tie, you continue to go until one person has more. Basically, you keep going until someone has the most and is not tied with anybody. The draw step is technically in 2 phases. There is a kind of opening where you can play cards, and then you draw your cards. Basically, there's like a little time period where you take turns playing cards, and it is important to note, as I play a card, it resolves, unless you play a card in response to that card. Like if I play a card and it's doing an effect to my drawing, and you play a card that does an effect to my drawing, mine will resolve first, then yours. But if you play a card in response to the card I played, that one resolves first, then my card. So it's only cards as they respond, basically, to what they are. And you start with you, the person drawing the cards, and you kind of go around the board and see if people want to play cards during this time here. Then when you are actually drawing the cards, it all happens at once. So there is a little bit of etiquette and timing, and basically it's when a card happens, it happens immediately. That exact moment of the game. Unlike the stack kind of is, or kind of was, there's no like backwards play. Like at most, like, you know, a card plays out, and it's basically when you're doing stuff in response to stuff, that's when you kind of stack it up. If you don't do stuff in response and you're just playing it all, they resolve, and then the next one resolves. And basically, it's anytime you could do something. Whatever that is, that happens. So you're playing special cards, take turns. The 3 actions. Let's go over some basic rules of the 3 actions. I'm going to talk about the different types of actions before the end of today. But you have 3. You can take them in any order. You can take any number of them. There are exceptions, though. Your tactical actions, which are 2, sabotage and attack, are special. You can normally only perform 1 tactical action per turn, and it must be your last action you perform. Keep in mind I said normally. And that's the same with 3 actions. There are cards or effects that could give you extra actions. They might give you extra tactical actions. Again, they will specifically say what kind of action, what you can do. Whether, you can have an extra attack. You can have an extra sabotage. But as soon as you perform a tactical action with one of your warriors, any unused actions are lost normally. And they'll be referred to as T actions with standard actions, S actions on some cards. So yeah. Also keep in mind, this is a very important one, no player may perform a tactical action during their first turn. It includes tactical actions gained by special cards. So your first turn, no tactical actions. So you have to wait till everybody goes through their entire turns once before you get to it. Once you perform all 3 of your actions, your turn's done. You can also perform no actions. You don't want to do anything, you don't need to. And again, I talked about bonus ones. It's just, you don't carry over actions. So if you're going to give yourself bonus actions, plan to use them. Yeah, because you either use them or lose them. You don't carry over actions. I'll go over all the different basic actions and kind of what they do a little bit, but we'll kind of keep it there for a moment as we finish up talking about the turn. And we'll also talk about combat here before. Anyway, then you discard. You may discard 1 card from your hand, no matter how many cards are in your hand. This is the end of your turn. It is discarded face down, and no player may look through their own or others' discard players' piles. You do not have to reveal what you discarded either. And like the draw step, there is a little pre-phase where people can play before the discard happens, and then the discard happens. It's the same kind of way, instantaneous stuff there. Just before we kind of move on to the actions, there's a couple little extra things I do want to talk about. The no warriors in play, that's an important one to kind of talk about to finish up your turn. At the beginning of your turn, if your draw pile's empty and you have no warriors in play, that can participate in combat at all. Because there are warriors that are sometimes called non-combatants. We'll talk about it. But yes, I can have warriors that if they can't do combat, they don't count for this. Basically, you have 3 turns to muster a warrior, to put a warrior into play, or you lose the game. Yes. You have the current turn and 2 more as soon as you can't draw a card. And as long as that warrior can participate in combat, even if it can't attack, but can defend. So it has to be able to be able to participate in a combat of some kind. Alright, there are special warriors for art cards. I'm not going to get into those, but there is one other thing. Designations. Designations are important. What are designations? On the card's text, there will be something in capital letters. If it says the word infantry in all capitals, is a designation. This means that if there's a card that affects infantry, you have that designation. You know, the card that I have is a designation. It could designate many different things here, but basically it does. And there are actually some special abilities. If you want to check out the 2nd edition rules, you can. I was able to find them online. I'm not going to throw them in the chat here at this point in time into the thing here, but you know, just if people want to dive into it, there are 2nd editions that are able to find online. That there are some other special abilities for cards, kind of like how Magic has things like flying, first strike, and trample. There stuff like that is on some of the warriors that are standard abilities. All right, let's talk actions. As we change a little bit here. Yes, we've reached a very important point in the entire thing. Our actions. We have 3 of them. What kind of actions we can take? Let's start with our standard actions, because I will talk about the tactical actions, but those will probably be in, honestly, the combat section, which we'll talk about next. First, you can meditate. What the hell is meditation? You gain a destiny point. That's it. You just gain a destiny point. You don't have to have a warrior in play. You can just spend an action to gain 1 destiny point. Why is that important? Well, because your second action you can take is muster a warrior. This is placing a warrior from your hand into one of your combat areas. The various types of cards will tell you where you can do. Your Doomtroopers enter your squad, your Dark Legion enters your cohort, your Tribal Warriors enter your outpost, and anyone that has not one of these type of things tells you where they can go into play. You take it from your hand, you place it in the proper area, and you pay its value in destiny points. Remember I said there were 4 stats on this card. That there was the fight, shoot, armor, value. Value is important. That's how many destiny points I have to spend to put a warrior into play. There are some extra rules here, but I'll keep that very simple today, and you just know that's what it is. Next, you can seek cover as an action or exit cover as an action. What the hell is cover? I turn a card face down. I take one of my warriors, I flip it over face down. Why would I do this? Well, while it's in cover, it gets +3 armor. I'll talk when I talk about attacking something in cover, but basically it gives it an armor bonus of +3 to flip it over in cover. And I can do this with a normal warrior or a warrior that's wounded. Again, we'll talk about wounding when we talk about combat a little bit too. So, and you, as the player who has this warrior, can look at it at any time, but everyone else has to remember what you flipped over. And as long as you have 1 or more warriors in play, one of them must not be in cover. So that's another important fact about this. I cannot seek cover if I have only 1 warrior. I have to have at least 1 warrior not in cover. And then also you can exit cover the same way, basically flipped up. If it's wounded, wounded warriors are sideways, you flip it up sideways still. It's wounded, it stays wounded. You can transfer warriors. Certain warriors can go to different places. You can move a Doomtrooper to your outpost, a Dark Legion to your outpost. You can move one of those back to your squad, Doomtrooper your squad, or, a Dark Warrior to your cohort. So basically, you kind of move them. The Tribal Warriors stay in your outpost. But basically, you can spend an action to move someone from one area to another for various reasons as you build up your entire thing. You may not have Doomtroopers and Dark Legions in your outpost at the same time. Keep that in mind, too. So if you're using both of them, one or the other. But again, you might be only playing with Dark Legion or Doomtrooper. You might not playing with both. It's up to you, again. Also keep in mind, this is a big important one. When you're transferring a warrior, if it has or is considered a vehicle, it costs 2 actions. Vehicles don't remove actions, they make it harder to transfer these things. Yeah, I know, that's kind of a weird one there too, but I did want to mention that one. The kind of fun one that way. And a warrior can only voluntarily transfer once per turn. Also, they can be forced by special cards, but basically I can't use all my actions to shift the same warrior back and forth. I can move it per warrior once per turn. Right, on my notes. Okay, you can equip a warrior. Hey, equipment cards or relics. You can equip those to a warrior. A warrior may have any number of equipment or relics, but relics are unique. So let's go back to our relics we talked about in card types. Basically, you can't play a relic card if there is already an identical relic in play. So yes, and copies of discarded relics may enter play later. So if I have a relic in play and I have an extra copy of it in my hand, I can only have 1 out in play. Or if my opponent has that relic, I can't play mine. So relics, 1 of in play. Basically a legendary item, you can always think of it as. Any warrior may use any equipment or relic. Doesn't matter affiliation, unless it states on that specific equipment or relic. Basically, a card may say Dark Legion only, then you can only put on Dark Legion warriors. Yeah. Or it might say Brotherhood only, then I can only put it on Brother. Or it could say Doomtrooper only. Once you place an equipment or relic to that warrior, it becomes attached to them. It may not be removed or moved to another warrior except via a card. So yes, Once I attach an equipment to someone, it's stuck with them unless a card that I have plays moves it. A warrior can have any number of equipment, but it can only use one copy at a time. So, if I have an equipment that perhaps when it's used gets discarded, I might put multiple copies on my warrior so he can use up multiple versions of it. There could be reason to put multiple copies, but again, I can equip any number of equipment to them, just one copy at a time. And some will be weapons, vehicles, armor. Weapons will say whether it's a fighting weapon, a shooting weapon, both, or special weapon too. Armor will kind of designate how it protects, and vehicles have their own rules and subtypes too. A warrior that has a vehicle only gets benefit when it's inside the vehicle. That's a thing we're going to talk about in a separate. And sometimes a vehicle restricts other items too. So, yeah. All right. So, yes. And there's also some extra rules when it comes to vehicles. We'll just say that for now. Just say that for now. Vehicles. Vehicles we got to talk about here for a second. They're special pieces of equipment. You're either inside or outside of it. You're first equipped with a vehicle, and then you announce whether it's inside or outside to begin with. If you're outside a vehicle, you place a vehicle face down on the table next to the warrior. Basically, and if you're inside, you place it face up next to the warrior. And it affects your character in different ways. It's important to remember that since warriors in cover are not allowed to be in vehicles, if you give them a vehicle to a warrior in cover, it must be outside of it. And then as an action, you can enter or exit a vehicle with a warrior. And you can do that as many times as you want during a turn, but each time costs you one action. So, yes. And basically it's flipping the vehicle card. Wrangling a beast. Hey, remember the beast cards I talked about? Yeah, you can give a warrior a beast as an action. Play it from your hand. But the warrior, regardless of what warrior it is, has to be in an outpost. So if you're playing with those beast cards, you have to transfer maybe your Doomtrooper to your outpost and then give it a beast there. And it moves back into your squad. Or your Dark Legion warrior. A warrior may have either a beast or a vehicle. It may not have more than one beast or vehicle. And it may not have both of them. That's it. And you're always assumed to be riding the beast, though, unlike the vehicles, at very least. And they give various modifiers to your stats when you have it. A warrior may also not be voluntarily transferred out of an outpost while a beast is attached. If you leave the outpost, you lose it. And they may be in cover, and they gain benefits of fortification. If you're in the vehicle, you don't get the benefits of fortification. Anyway, you can build fortification. Yeah. As an action, you place a fortification card from your hand into your combat area. The card will tell you where it will be placed. And it will affect all warriors in the same area. So yes, if I play fortification down, it might be on my squad, it might be on my cohort, it might be on my outpost. It will tell you where I can place it. And it is in one of those 3 combat areas. You may have only one copy of each fortification in play at a time, unless the card states otherwise. Other players may also have one copy of each of the same fortifications as you in play. So unlike relics, everybody can have their own ones, but I can only have one at a time in play, regardless of my number of combat areas I'm placing them in. The dark gifts, the dark symmetry gifts, they can be bestowed on Dark Legion toadies, and Service the Great Darkness as an action. They're attached to one of them and give their effects. There's minor gifts, minor heretical gifts, and major gifts of apostates. Key powers the symbol way. As an action, I can put a key power on a Mishima warrior. You can assign a mission as an action. You can assign it to one of your warriors, to yourself, another player, or another player's warriors in one action. The mission card will indicate who may be given the assignment. The missions assigned to warriors are placed on them. Mission assigned to players are placed next to that player. A mission must be assigned before any part of the mission may be completed. Once it's completed, the mission is discarded. That's the thing here is that mission will have a bonus or maybe a penalty while it's in play on someone. So maybe if you want to give yourself a mission if you get something out of it. Or you may want to play it on another player if it weakens them. Hey, you have to do this mission first. It's an idea. Anyway, a player can have any number of different missions attached to them, but you might not have the same mission. But if they complete a mission, then you can replace it with the same mission, basically. You may only have one tactic in play, though. Tactic being a type of mission. Once it's fulfilled, then you can assign that other copy. And once you fulfill the parameters of a mission, basically, fulfilling the parameters of a mission is always optional. That's an important thing to keep in mind. You don't have to fill the parameters of a mission. However, if you do fulfill those parameters, you have to fulfill the mission and finish the mission. So basically, it's this mission tells me what I have to do. I don't have to do it, but if I should do it, either on purpose or by accident, I fulfill the mission. You can't keep them in play. You can't disregard its fulfillment. All right, 2 more normal actions. Proclaim alliance. You can have 1 alliance at a time in a play. I talked about the alliance cards. Each player may only have 1 alliance card in play. Basically, alliances also don't require an action to play. They're played at any time too. They can never be discarded or annihilated. Special cards can get rid of them. They're all unique. So if there is a alliance already in play, I can't play. You can also establish war zones. Kind of like fortifications, war zones are added to combat areas as an action. You can have any number of identical war zones. Any number of identical war zones may be in play, but may only play 1 copy in each of each war zone in play. So I can have this war zone, you can have that war zone, the other player can have that war zone, but we can each have 1 in play. When your warrior is a defender, you can choose to use one of the war zones. That's what war zones do. Kind of like fortifications give bonuses, but there's special rules for it. War zones are a little bit bigger than fortifications in a lot of ways. All right. Let's talk the 2 combat and the 2 tactical actions. Yeah, we've reached tactical actions. We've got a good way through these rules, so we're not nearly done. So there are 2 tactical actions normally. Again, I said other special actions can be done. Sabotage and attack. So let's talk about sabotage first. So when do I use sabotage? When someone has no warriors in play that can participate in combat at all. Now this isn't saying I have no warriors and no cards in deck. Remember, that's a different thing. That's, and no cards in deck is a 1 state, no warriors is a different state. If you have both, you have to worry about losing the game. But if you just have 1, no warriors in play, well, someone can sabotage me. I can have one of my warriors sabotage the player that has no able to participate warriors with an action. I basically undermine the player, I increase my power, and I earn points. The sabotaging warrior must be able to participate in combat. Keep that in mind. It has to be a combat character, not a non-combatant. You must only sabotage each player once a turn. So from your draw step to your next draw step. Even if you gain more tactical advantages, even if you get a tactical advantage on another one's turn, you may not sabotage more than once per turn also. So each player and once per turn. So yes, if I gain a tactical action during someone else's turn, you can do that. You gain actions during someone else's turn. That's a thing. I didn't really go into it, but there are cards that apparently do that. If it happens to be a tactical sabotage, I couldn't sabotage a person I've already done, and it's once per turn too. There are some multiple sabotage optional rules though that happen for more multiplayer related things, but yes. To perform it, you simply announce which of my warriors that can attack is doing sabotage. And unless that player has a card that prevents that, it happens. That's it. It just happens. As a reward, I earn a number of points equal to 1/2 my modified V value of the sabotaging warrior. Remember, my warrior has value, and all the cards I've got on it, or cards I play on it, modify that value. So whatever that value ends up being, half of that, rounded up, I can take in either promotion points, destiny points, or a combination of 2 of them. Here's where the major thing comes in, which I'm going to talk about. Once you earn points, you split it between promotion and destiny. Yeah. Do I spend my points gain? Do I use it to win the game? Or do I want resources to put myself in a better position to win the game? That's the balance. That's the thing here. And And you can never perform a sabotage action until all players have at least taken one turn. Similar to, basically, you have to wait till everybody takes a turn before you can be sabotaged. Oh, and you can never perform a sabotage action during another player's turn. So even if I get a tactical action on another player's turn, it can't be a sabotage. If you're able to do T actions when it's not your turn, none of them are ever sabotage. So basically, yes, I can do one sabotage at a player on each turn, and no more than one sabotage per turn. So, okay, that's sabotaging. Cool. Let's talk attacking. Stabby, stabby. So this is the basic action. I get one per turn. Remember, that tactical action has got to be the last. I'm either doing the attack as my tactical action or sabotage if I take a tactical action. And you may not attack really first turn. Pretty simple there. Cool, great. You can only perform an attack with one of your warriors can attack. Yeah, that's the obvious one. And the combat is you choosing an attacker and one defender. Ah, there's where it comes in. I choose the attacker and who I'm attacking, who is defending against me. There are other cards that may allow other warriors to join the battle. And it is possible through cards to do more than one attack per turn. Again, and if I'm attacking, I can attack with the same warrior that I just attacked with. I can have the defender be the same one I just attacked too. So the defender warrior can be the same one. So if I have extra attacks by card, I can do the exact same thing again. But you resolve each individually. And it's pretty straightforward, broken down into a few simple steps. Are we ready for those steps? Cool, because we're going to kind of dive into them. First and foremost, you announce the attacker and the defender. That's it. I'm attacking with my warrior. I'm going to attack your warrior. And you decide if the combat will be a fighting combat or shooting combat. Okay, cool. Remember, everybody has an F and an S. Basically, I choose which battle tactic is being used. If I'm doing this as an F, more melee-based combat, or S, shooty combat. The defender then decides if they're going to be in a war zone that they have in their combat area, if they have it. Next then, we compare their standings. This is basically comparing the attacker's combat rating, whichever one I'm using, to defender's armor. The defender does the same. So basically, if I'm shooting, the defender can shoot me back. Anyway, before we resolve everything finally, we play cards. Taking turns with the attacker first, then the defender, we play cards to enhance it. It's just the same way as I talked about the enhancing cards before. There are some extra rules here we'll kind of go into in depth about each of these steps, but yes. Once we've done that, we resolve the combat. We've enhanced everything, we've gotten to the proper numbers. If a warrior is hit, basically if the attacker meets or beats the defender's value, then they are hit. They get a wound. If a wounded character is hit, they are killed and discarded. When a warrior dies, it becomes a number of points equal to that warrior's modified value. Again, modified value is the card's base value and any other cards that are affecting it and increasing that value. And then points are awarded for the warrior who made the killing blow to the player who owns that warrior. So I could wound another person. If another one of the players kills that guy, then they get all those points. And again, it can be divided between promotion points and destiny points, how you see fit. All right, let's go into a little bit of extra on each of these 8 rounds. The attacker defender. There are some specific rules you have to know about this. A Doomtrooper can't attack a Doomtrooper from the same corp. That's the first one. Hey, a Doomtrooper can't attack a Brotherhood. A Brotherhood members may only attack Dark Legion and Tribal Warriors. Dark Legion may attack anybody else, even other Dark Legion. If warriors in an outpost may only attack warriors in other outposts. They may never attack warriors in squads or cohorts. Warriors various, and there is assassins as a designation that can attack anybody. Also, there are non-combatants. If something says non-combatant in it, it can never be attacked or the target of attack. You have to find a different card to affect a non-combatant. Yes, even things that say any warrior in play cannot be used as a non-combatant. It has to specifically mention it does something to non-combatants. You can't attack your own warriors unless a card allows you to. Can't attack yourself. Special cards. Why would you want to? Well, maybe I kill myself for some points? Win the game. Yes. So, again, all the things, the cards, the equipment, that affects their shoot and fight and shoot range, you choose them. Again, I talked about war zones. War zones will affect the FSAV of a defender within that. And if you defend from a war zone, neither combatant may use the effects of fortifications. Equipment and warriors with fortification designations are or considered fortifications may be used. So basically, anything that kind of is unique, like actual fortification cards, can't be used if a war zone's going on, if it's being defended from. Because again, if I'm attacking from a fortification, sometimes it might affect my attack too. And attackers don't use war zones, though. So, like, I know I'm attacking into a war zone. You know, that's something to keep in mind. And you can't use war zones in other combat areas. Also keep that in mind. Yes. So, as I said, basic thing is compare whichever type of tactic I'm using to the other person's armor, and they compare that same tactic back to me. And if you're equal or greater, you hit each other. So it's possible for each other to wound each other. It's possible for each other to kill each other. Because remember, we start with the basic comparison, see where we're going, and then we play cards. Then we modify things. We take turns, starting with the attacker, playing cards, seeing bonuses. You can get negatives. A value may never be below 0, but its fighting ability can be below 0. Its armor can be below 0, but its true end value may never be lower than 0. If you're modified to 0, you're 0. And if you get wounded, you turn on its side. Any warrior that's wounded turns to the side. And then you get the points. And then, of course, you win the game when you get to the correct number of points. That's it. Doomtrooper on Steam. Let's talk about the digital version of Doomtrooper to finish up today. The revamp that started out a number of years ago. Effectively, there was a digital version Kickstarter that was successfully funded. And its date was before 2017. I didn't get an exact date, but the estimated delivery was January of 2018. And the last time the Kickstarter page was updated was in 2020. So this was a very successful Kickstarter that basically got twice the amount that they had pledged. A decent number of backers to get the official Doomtrooper, basically a digital version of the card game that was on Steam. Apparently the full beta was eventually given, and it came out on Steam on August 3rd of 2020. So it has been released by Secret Crow Level, was the group that did. So you can find it still now. Unfortunately, it's still in early access, and the last true update was around 17 months ago. So I don't really know the status of the full game at this point in time. You can get it for free. It's free on Steam right now, so you can just add it to your library. Gameplay is based around the game. It's got 7 different factions. It's got various missions and stuff like that. There's a single player story mode. I can't say a lot more about it. I haven't tested it out to see how it works. I cannot say how much of it was fully done, but it's a digital version of the game that does exist now. And whether or not there will be more updates, how many expansions were actually put out in it, a lot of this details I didn't dive into because I'm not here to talk about the digital revamp of the game. I'm just mentioning it to you out there. If you want to try to play Doomtrooper now, you can. Kinda. Beyond just maybe finding some cards somewhere online and buying them, or maybe possibly playing on Tabletop Sim if it's out there, or another kind of similar digital platform. There is an actual free Doomtrooper game on Steam you can try out now. See how it works. I don't know if you can play with anybody else. I did not see that when I looked in the rules. But it's a fascinating thing that exists that was part of the successful Kickstarter. And there is an online PvP. Whether it's more than 2 players, again, haven't really looked into it deeply. But again, since this is kind of the closest thing to a true revamp of the game in digital format, I wanted to talk about it today. And there you go, there's Doomtrooper. That's a fascinating game. when I looked into it and kind of dove into it, it plays remarkably like the Crow game, which I've already reviewed on this channel. But it is a lot more complex, and it has more layers to it. It's almost as if like the Crow is an easier version of this game, and this one has a lot more layers and stuff to it, but it dives deeper into this Mutant Chronicles idea. I think it's one of these things of, they are different games, but they play similarly. You defeat each other, earn points by defeating each other, you know. You defeat, you know, in the other one, angels or devils and kind of that kind of thing. This is your various Doomtroopers and Dark Legions and warriors, and you defeat the warriors to claim points. This one has 2 different kind of like values that you kind of earn. There's some fascinating aspects to this entire thing that make it a very interesting game and a much deeper game than the previous one I talked about. Maybe it goes to show why the Crow didn't get anything and Doomtrooper got a crap ton of expansions. It was the version of that game developed by these 2 together that kind of brought home the entire mechanics of it. And Doomtrooper is a fascinating game for that because it did have a bunch of expansions. Honestly speaking, it may have had more support and kept going if not for the parent companies going bankrupt. Was it their RPGs? Was it all these CCGs, just throwing them all out there? Was it too many of them? Should they have focused on one? There's a lot of questions that we can't answer necessarily unless we kind of probably find and talk to some people that were working there at the time. Getting harder and harder now since it's the 90s that this happened in. But still, nonetheless, it is a fascinating story of a very interesting game based on an RPG that had a moniker of success and even now, kind of still play. So, is it dead? Mostly, but not completely. So, if you're interested in Doomtrooper CCG, probably still play it. And it seems a fascinating enough game with some pretty interesting rules, that, especially if you grab those second edition ones, that are pretty well developed. So, I'll leave that there. Not all of you enjoy Doomtrooper. But if you want to see more of my stuff, you can always join me, whether it's here, over on Twitch, where I record this, or over on the YouTube side of things, if you're over there, because that's where all my tabletop stuff ends up. On your Twitch side, hey, I do gaming, I do chatting, I do a lot of things. I do live plays. Fall of Avonswell Wednesday at 8, discussing tabletop. Saturdays at 6. Those are the 2 big major shows I say, hey, come on, join me for. But if you can't catch anything, YouTube's the best place for that. I do a lot of old live plays, videos like this, all these kind of things. Anyway, if you are on that YouTube, remember to do those things I talked about at the beginning. Really helps. Be liking and ringing the bell too. If you want to see more and know what's going on with my schedule, you can always check out my social media. Discord's the best of them all, but it keeps you on the guide when I'm going live, my schedule for the day, and of course, when things are being uploaded. Anyway, until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.